The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
DNC ends on a high note.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Harris becomes the presidential nominee.
I accept your nomination.
Kamala strikes a personal chord.
But my mother never lost her cool. Never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it.
Democratic presidential nominee takes on Trump.
In the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand and I know where the United States belongs.
All the latest Ground Zero updates here on WION World is One.
Welcome back to WION World is One. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching World DNA with me, Him Kaur Saroya, and here's what we've lined up for you on the show today. Three people killed, 4 severely injured in a knife attack at a festival in the German city of Solingen. Police say a single unidentified man attacked multiple people. Israeli airstrikes across southern Lebanon kill at least 8 Hezbollah fighters and 1 child as Iran-backed group responds with artillery rounds across the border. Israel intercepts Hezbollah's rockets. US military says it carried out strike in Syria that killed Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Maki, a senior leader of Al-Qaeda-aligned Ras al-Din. Satellite imagery shows damage to ferry at Russia's Kavkaz port as Ukraine's navy claimed it destroyed the ferry being used to deliver fuel and weapons to occupied Crimea. Ukrainian President Zelensky speaks to WION on Prime Minister Modi's Kyiv trip, says happy that Indian Prime Minister came to visit the country, responds to hugs and handshakes.
In Moscow, you condemned the embrace.
The signal of condemnation was not because the Prime Minister came to see Putin.
Flash floods wreak havoc in Bangladesh with the death toll rising to 15 and millions more caught in the deluge. Road and rail communications disrupted as sections of railway lines and highways remain submerged. Formula One officially returns after the summer break. Mercedes driver George Russell sets the pace in Friday's practice session at the Dutch Grand Prix. Home favourite Max Verstappen finishes fifth. The time has come for policy to adjust, says US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He expressed confidence that inflation is within reach of the central bank's 2% target. At least 3 people have been killed, 4 others seriously injured in a stabbing attack at a festival in western Germany's Solingen city. The attack took place at around 10 p.m. local time when an unidentified man attacked multiple people with a knife on Central Square. According to the German police officials, the attacker fled the scene and a massive operation is currently underway to find the suspect.
Wir möchten jetzt bitte, dass keine Panik ausbricht. Aber wir haben durch einen Messerstecher am Fronhof sehr, sehr viele Schwerverletzte. Und wir möchten euch bitten, dass ihr geht. In aller Ruhe bitte die Augen aufhaltet. Ja, denn leider ist der Täter nicht gefasst. Ich weiß, ihr kriegt das in aller Ruhe hin. Lauft bitte jetzt nicht alle auf einen Schlag los. Stück für Stück bitte. Ja, und behindert vor allen Dingen hinten am Klosterwall und Richtung Mummstraße die Einsatzkräfte nicht.
In a statement posted online, Tim Oliver Kurzbach, the mayor of Solingen, said the whole city was in shock, horror and great grief. He further said, "We all wanted to celebrate our town's anniversary together and we now have to mourn the dead and injured." The city authorities have asked people to leave the market area where the incident took place. They've also cordoned off the entire area. Police and forensic officers seen working at the site of the incident in the early hours of Saturday. Officials say that the motive of the attacker still remains unknown and the information compiled so far was very thin. The attack happened at an event marking the city's 650th anniversary. It's known as the Festival of Diversity. The event was supposed to run till Sunday with at least 10,000 people in attendance. And crossfire continues to intensify between Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah group. In the latest Israeli airstrikes across southern Lebanon have killed at least 8 fighters and 1 child, and the militant group has responded with artillery rounds and rockets across the border. On Friday, Israeli strikes killed 6 Hezbollah members in various towns across the south and another outside Aitharan. A separate Israeli strike on the village near the Israeli border killed a Hezbollah fighter and a child. The Israeli military has said that it had targeted the militant because he was a member of Hezbollah's rocket and missile unit. It also said that it had targeted 2 other Hezbollah fighters across the south. The Israeli army also released footage of airstrikes on Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. The aerial video depicts an airstrike on a vehicle and a rocket launcher. In a statement accompanying the video, the army said that the vehicle belonged to a member of Hezbollah's rocket and missile unit. The IDF also reported more than 40 projectiles fired from Lebanese territory, saying that it crossed into northern Israel, but that no injuries were reported. The army says it intercepted some of the projectiles. Hezbollah has claimed to have fired rockets and artillery fire onto various Israeli military positions throughout the day. A rocket barrage was seen crossing from southern Lebanon towards northern Israel. Sirens blared in the Israeli cities to warn residents of the attacks. Projectiles, heavy smoke and explosions were seen in the Israeli sky. The Israeli military, it's been trading fire with Iran-backed Hezbollah across the Lebanese border for months now. Hostilities have ramped up recently, raising fears of a full-scale war in the region. More than 600 people in Lebanon have been killed since clashes erupted in October, including more than 400 Hezbollah militants and over 130 civilians. Since October, Israeli strikes on Syria have also intensified sharply. Israel has been carrying out attacks against what it has described as Iran-linked targets in Syria. On Friday, 7 civilians were wounded in Israeli strikes on Syria's central region. The Syrian Defense Ministry has said its air defenses shot down some of the Israeli rockets. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthis targeted 2 vessels in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The Iran-aligned group has said that the ships belong to companies dealing with Israel and violating the decision to ban entry into Palestinian ports. US President Joe Biden dialed his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky and announced a new round of military aid for Kyiv. The package will include air defense missiles, counter-drone equipment, anti-armor missiles and ammunition. Zelensky welcomed the US aid, adding that Ukraine needed weapons urgently since Russia's full-scale invasion. United States has been a key military backer for Ukraine, committing more than $55 billion in weapons and other security aid. The United States announced additional military aid for Ukraine. The same day it imposed a tranche of sanctions on Russia. The sanctions from the US Treasury and State Departments hit nearly 400 people and entities in and outside Russia, including China. The list includes those supporting the Russian supply chain and defense base as well as those helping Moscow evade current sanctions. Meanwhile, tensions persist on the battlefield. Ukraine's Navy confirmed that it had destroyed a ferry in the Russian port of Kavkaz that was used to deliver fuel and weapons to occupied Crimea. The hit ferry was carrying 30 fuel tanks, according to district head of the town, which includes the port as well. And independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has withdrawn from the U.S. presidential race. He has endorsed Republican nominee Donald Trump in the November election. In an address, Kennedy acknowledged that his odds were dim. He said, and I'm quoting here, "I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep their long hours, ask my donors to keep giving when I can't honestly tell that I have the path to the White House." The development comes about 3 months after a private phone call between Kennedy and Trump got leaked. In the call, Trump was apparently heard trying to coax Kennedy to support him. Kennedy says he would remove his name from the ballot in 10 battleground states likely to determine the outcome of the election. He will remain a candidate in other states. Reasoning his decision to back Trump, he said that they shared concerns about free speech, the war in Ukraine. Trump celebrated Kennedy's endorsement at a campaign stop in Las Vegas, calling him a great guy, respected by everyone. But will Kennedy's endorsement help Trump win against Harris? Harris is back from Chicago after delivering an electrifying speech that erased the polling leads Trump enjoyed before she replaced Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket last month. A recent compilation of national polls by 538, which is a polling website, show Harris leading Trump by 47.2% to 43.6%. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has completed visits to war rivals Moscow and Kyiv. While the trips have contrasting outcomes, the underlying message has been the same. Coming an entire month apart, two gestures of friendship involving the Indian Prime Minister are underlining India's diplomatic balancing act in the times of war and deep-set rivalries. The United States White House said it believes Modi's visit to Ukraine could be helpful in resolving the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This was after reports had suggested that it was upset with Modi for embracing Russian President Putin during his trip to Moscow in July. Zelensky himself had slammed Prime Minister Modi's hug as a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts. A month since, the Indian Prime Minister has attempted to iron out the perceived tilt towards Moscow by warmly embracing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
You know, in our part of the world, when people meet people, they are given to embracing each other. It may not be part of your culture, but I assure you it's part of ours. In fact, today I think I saw the Prime Minister also embrace President Zelensky, and I've seen him do it with a number of other leaders in a number of other places.
India has always avoided explicit condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It has instead urged both sides to resolve their differences through dialogue and diplomacy.
कि किसी भी समस्या का समाधान रणभूमि में कभी भी नहीं होता है। समाधान का रास्ता बातचीत से ही निकलता है, डायलॉग से निकलता है, डिप्लोमेसी से निकलता है, और हमने बिना समय गंवाए उस दिशा में आगे बढ़ना चाहिए। दोनों पक्षों को साथ बैठ करके इस संकट की घड़ी से बाहर निकलने के रास्ते तलाशने होंगे।
In fact, WION also asked Volodymyr Zelensky about his condemnation of Prime Minister Modi embracing Putin. Listen to this.
Hi, sir. I'm Siddhant from WION, is India's international channel. My question to you is, when Prime Minister Modi was in Moscow, you condemned the embrace between the Indian Prime Minister and the Russian President. He's here in Kyiv. He embraced you. Has your assessment changed because he is present in Kyiv, meeting you and hugging you?
Signal of condemnation was not because the Prime Minister came to see Putin, but because the Prime Minister came to Putin and Putin killed our children, and we wanted to have some reaction, to hear some response. And I think it's important that the democratic world is understanding what is happening, that Putin is a killer.
Many countries have criticized India's stance as an attempt to prevent damage to its long-standing relationship with Russia. India has firmly ignored the threats of sanctions by Western powers to buy deeply discounted Russian oil. Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine after his Moscow visit is also in line with India's larger push to be a global power. Analysts say that working with Russia, Ukraine and the West allows India to advance its core interests of sovereignty, economic growth and military interests. It also demonstrates a pragmatism where India is working with different partners to address its key strategic challenges.
A significant day for India-Ukraine relationship. The Indian Prime Minister here in the Ukrainian capital Kyiv having conversation with President Zelensky. The message, of course, on the war was essentially on dialogue, that both sides need to sit together and resolve the issue. But the in-person presence of the leader of the world's largest democracy here in Ukraine is seen as a significant commitment by the Indian side when it comes to the ongoing war. The Indian Prime Minister was in Moscow 2 months ago, and now he's here in Ukraine having conversation with the Ukrainian president. Of course, practical cooperation remained the big focus. 4 MOUs signed, including on humanitarian assistance, and of course when it comes to India giving humanitarian and medical assistance as well, that was also handed over. But all in all, the joint statement with reference to territorial integrity is indeed significant in terms of India's stance amidst the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, and it looks like the relationship is only going to further strengthen with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi inviting President Zelensky to travel to India. With video journalist Neeraj Patel, Siddhant Sibal for WION in Kyiv, Ukraine.
Now, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh is on a 4-day visit to Washington. On day 1 of his trip, he met with US Secretary of Defence Lloyd Austin and discussed ways to deepen existing defence cooperation between the two countries. 2 key agreements have been signed between India and the United States: the security of supply arrangements and the arrangement for positioning of Indian officers at key US commands. In a social media post, Rajnath Singh said the signing of these agreements are path-breaking developments. The visit is expected to further boost comprehensive global strategic partnership between the two nations. Before the key meeting, the defence minister visited the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington and paid his respects to the tomb of the unknown soldier. Earlier, he began his visit by addressing members of the Indian diaspora in the United States. The minister said that their dedication to America as expats should not be questioned, and asserted that Indians can be cheated but can never cheat because deceit is not in their character. The trip comes in the backdrop of growing momentum in India-US relations. Rajnath Singh is also scheduled to meet US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. The talks are expected to focus on key defence cooperation initiatives, including the procurement of Predator drones and joint manufacturing of Stryker infantry combat vehicles. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report. Take a look.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with his Indian counterpart Rajnath Singh at the Pentagon to discuss the growing U.S.-India defense relationship. They praised the increased cooperation on defense issues, including supply chain strengthening, military interoperability, and naval cooperation as well. Now, the countries also finalized a security of supply agreement to support national defense needs. They also discussed expanding defense industrial ties, co-producing capabilities and strengthening undersea domain awareness as well. Now, the meeting highlighted the shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific and the importance of the U.S.-India partnership in promoting global security and commerce as well. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
China has shared good ties with Russia and its ally Belarus. Chinese Premier Li Qiang earlier this week met with Russian President Vladimir Putin for a 29th regular meet, following which Qiang is in Belarus. The Chinese Premier was welcomed in a grand ceremony held by the Belarusian Prime Minister Roman Golovchenko in Minsk. The ceremony was held at the Independence Square in front of the government house. Li Qiang was greeted by Golovchenko upon his arrival. Belarusian army band played the anthems of China and Belarus, after which Li and Golovchenko inspected the Guard of Honor and also watched the march past. Li also met with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, conveying the cordial greetings of Chinese President Xi Jinping to Lukashenko. Li said that China-Belarus relations have always shown vigor and vitality since the establishment of diplomatic ties 32 years ago. According to a joint statement, China and Belarus agreed to strengthen cooperation in a range of sectors, including trade, security, energy and finance. Belarus has been targeted by sanctions over its support of Russia's military offensive on Ukraine and Lukashenko's crackdown on protesters. Following his disputed 2020 re-election, and is hugely reliant on economic support from Moscow. China, on the other hand, is softening its economic muscle across Eurasia through the vast infrastructure and financial projects, seeking to build up its soft power in an investment splurge that is concerning the West. Will we see a Federal Reserve pivot soon? Well, that's what Fed Chair Jerome Powell said at the Jackson Hole Symposium. Powell said that the moment has come for the central bank to cut its main policy rate. His speech on Friday confirmed predictions that the Fed will start rate cuts next month and prevent further cooling in the labor market. Additionally, the Fed chief said that the inflation has been moderating towards the central bank's target.
The time has come for policy to adjust. The direction of travel is clear, and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks.
Powell's comments helped but the market's immediate concerns to rest. However, his statement did not reveal much about the Fed's plans beyond its September meeting. The Fed has been fighting inflation for 2 years, and the speech proved it is about to reach a tipping point. Through that period, the labor market maintained an unexpectedly strong performance that allowed policymakers to relentlessly pursue their goal of bringing inflation down to target. Powell acknowledged recent progress on inflation, and this is what he had to say.
My confidence has grown that inflation is on a sustainable path back to 2%.
All right, it's time now for some updates from the world of entertainment. Indian actor Varun Dhawan has joined Sunny Deol in the upcoming Bollywood war drama Border 2. The film is a sequel to director J.P. Datta's 1997 blockbuster Border. Dhawan, who will essay the role of a soldier in the movie, expressed his happiness in a new social media post, recalling how the 1997 release impacted him. Dhawan called this project a very special moment in his career.
हिंदुस्तान का फौजी हूं मैं
In some good news for Dua Lipa fans, the pop star all set to return to India, and this time for a concert set to perform in Mumbai later this year. The global icon will headline the Zomato Feeding India concert. The concert will take place on 30th of November. The pre-sale of the tickets will begin on the 27th of August and the general sale will go live on the 29th of August. The three-time Grammy winner last visited India in 2023 when she was on a holiday with her family. The Good Half, which is currently screening in US theatres, is all set for its digital release in September. Starring American singer-songwriter Nick Jonas and Alexandra Shipp in lead roles. The film is a comedy about grief. Interestingly, the movie features a meet-cute between two actors, and the said sequence has already become the talk of town. The movie premiered at the Tribeca Festival in June last year and marked its theatrical release on the 23rd of July, 2024.
Give me your phone. From here, we go to the hospital to get her things, then we go to meet the priest.
And with that, we call it a wrap on this edition of World DNA. News and updates continue on the other side on WION. World is One. Stay tuned.
DNC ends on a high note.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Harris becomes the presidential nominee.
I accept your nomination.
Kamala strikes a personal chord.
But my mother never lost her cool. Never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it.
Democratic presidential nominee takes on Trump.
In the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand and I know where the United States belongs.
All the latest Ground Zero updates here on WION World is One.
This week on Inside South Asia, the Kolkata rape and murder exposes failures on many fronts. From the horrific crime against women to the attempted cover-up by authorities. Will justice be delivered? A new administration is in place in Bangladesh. We take a look at the social, economical, and political changes in the country. Witness the rich culture and tradition of Sri Lanka's Temple of the Truth procession in Kandy. The film Superboys of Malegaon all set to be celebrated at the Toronto International Film Festival. All this and much more on Inside South Asia.
On Wings this week, a journey across India's most legendary tea-growing regions. From the north to the south, where tea tourism is on the rise. We also cover flower festivals and cultural events from China to South America, as well as the latest tourism developments from the African continent. Only on WION, World is One.
As the number of shows and films based on video games continues to rise,
No parameters.
we decode the movie genre for you. Take a look at the most anticipated Hollywood films of the year and learn some lesser-known facts about Hollywood's amazing Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times, only on WION E-Club.
Shortly after declaring it a global emergency, the World Health Organization is rushing to find vaccines to control the spread of Mpox as other countries, including Sudan, declare another problem, cholera. Anger and protests spread in Tunisia over the detention of several opposition figures and critics of the president, despite the country's election commission declaring October 6th as the polling day, with Kais Saied running for a new term. And Ethiopia's traditional sauna therapy gains big city popularity, with Addis Ababans creating a buzz on social media about the benefits. World of Africa at these times on WION.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I actually pushed myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Very good morning. Thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One with me, Raisha Sehgal. There's lots lined up on the show, but first a quick check on the headlines. Three people killed and 4 severely injured in a knife attack at a festival in German city of Zolligen. Police say a single unidentified man attacked multiple people. Israeli airstrikes across southern Lebanon kill at least 8 Hezbollah militants and 1 child as Iran-backed group responds with artillery rounds across the border. Israel intercepts Hezbollah's rockets. US military says it carried out strike in Syria that killed Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Makki, a senior leader of Al-Qaeda. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky speaks to WION on Prime Minister Modi's Kiev trip, says happy that Indian Prime Minister visited the country. Response on hugs and handshakes.
Modi was in Moscow. You condemned the embrace.
The signal of condemnation was not because the Prime Minister came to see Putin.
Probe agency CBI to take over the investigation into irregularities at Kolkata's RJ Kar Hospital today, after Calcutta High Court's order to transfer the probe being conducted by the SIT constituted by the West Bengal government. Bangladesh is requesting an extra $3 billion in emergency aid from the IMF. That will be over and above last year's $4.7 billion in IMF aid. England close in